Hey, we have some actual science with regard to so-called mercury in vaccines. And I say so-called mercury for a very specific reason, which I'll outline in a second. There is a study called Early Exposure to the Combined Measles, Mumps, Rubella Vaccine and Thimerosal-Containing Vaccines and Risk of Autism Spectrum Disorders. To give you the highlights of the study, we have heard from some that there is a link between vaccines, specifically the MMR vaccine, and the onset of autism spectrum disorders. There are parents who are choosing not to vaccinate because of apprehension around these links. There is a case control study that has been done, which looks at the links between autism spectrum disorders and the MMR vaccine and vaccines containing thimerosal. The study was conducted in a highly genetically homogeneous population of Japanese individuals, so we can discount the possibility of varying genetics distorting the results. And there was no evidence whatsoever that the vaccines containing thimerosal are connected with an increased risk of autism or autism spectrum disorders. And we'll link to the study and you can look online at the specifics of it. But the results are no link whatsoever, no convincing evidence whatsoever. When we look at the actual science that these vaccines are connected in any way with risk or diagnosis of autism spectrum disorders. And now I really want to get to the crux of this because you hear from people, Lewis, hey, mercury is bad for you and the vaccines contain mercury. The vaccines contain ethyl mercury. To say mercury in vaccines is not precise. To say ethyl mercury is accurate. And the difference between ethyl mercury and methyl mercury is huge. To give you an example, Lewis, of what I mean by this, people have probably heard of ethanol, and some may have also heard of methanol. Both are, quote, alcohol, but the difference chemically is huge. One gets you drunk and the other can blind or kill you. And people are ignoring these chemical differences when they talk about vaccines.
Yeah, well, that's because it's nuanced, and you start changing words and adding details and information, you lose people. That's not what people want to hear.
No, no question about it. And we have another piece of evidence here that the panic around vaccination and autism, we already knew it to be false. The guy who brought us the case had a financial interest in a measles-only vaccine. He's been debarred, decertified as a medical doctor. But we now have yet another study that tells us that so-called mercury, which is not actually mercury, in vaccines is not connected with autism risk. I know a lot of people will hear this and say, David, it doesn't matter. You're absolutely wrong about it. And I anticipate getting a bunch of those emails later today. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/dpakman.